The school committee meeting to order, May 17th, 2021. Mr. Jokel, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Stevens, Resource Subcommittee, please.
Resource Subcommittee. We met this past week, and we had a very short meeting. We heard from Jeff Bennett, Crocker Field Restoration Committee, who will be on our agenda tonight, and we also submitted our interest in the MSBA Statement of Interest for Lonjo Middle School for accelerated repairs.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? I skipped my chair report. I wish should be first. Chair report, I have nothing to report at this time. School building needs, that would be Mr. Stevens as well.
Nothing on school building needs.
All right, any questions? Seeing none. Policy Subcommittee,
Nothing new to report.
any questions? Comments? Seeing none. Student Support Committee, Ms.
Yes,
LaBelle Pierce.
Nothing new to report.
Nothing to report. Any questions? Seeing none. School Personnel Committee, that would be me. I have nothing to report at this time. Any questions? Executive Committee, nothing to report as well. Student representatives.
It's just me for today, but
Okay.
somewhat busy week. The big thing for this week is National Honor Society induction is Thursday. Students and their close family are invited to be in the auditorium. There's going to be 43 students, but it's 100. Only have 100 people in the auditorium, so they're asking those only a close family. And then it will also be broadcasted on FATV on Thursday night at 7 p.m. for those that want to watch at home. We're moving into AP testing at this time in the year. There is AP test this week and the week after. We're wishing all students good luck. If you have any questions, Carol Robinson is for the high school for any students with that. And we're wishing all of our kids that are taking the AP test good luck throughout them. And then next testing after that is MCAS testing, which is happening for both freshmen, sophomores, and then juniors that want it for scholarships. We are having this going to be 4 days of testing. It's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then there's none on Friday to give students a relief. And Friday is also a makeup day if any of the students miss a test. And then coming in, it's being a pretty, there's a lot of senior activities that are happening throughout the high school through the next couple of weeks. So look out for those of your high school students, senior, to make sure you participate and make the most out of your experience. And we're coming into winding down the year, and there is not too much else happening. There's a lot happening, but it's more school-based, so.
Any questions?
Well, I have a question, but I'm not sure if Jack can answer it. Maybe somebody else here can answer it. So what's happening with some of the other traditions? Like obviously the Scholars Banquet, that was canceled last year. My assumption is it's canceled this year. But I was curious, we're at a point where we can be doing some things to recognize kids, even if they're not a banquet involved. Because that was a real, I happened to have a daughter graduate last year, and it was a real bummer to lose some of those pieces. So I'm just curious if there's a plan, if anybody knows about that plan. May was always the time you had event after event going, so.
I'm going to have to get back to you, Jean, about the status. We don't have the prom, the relays. We didn't run this year. So I'll check with Jeremy and follow up tomorrow.
I would think there could at least be a ceremony to recognize those kids. We used to call it the Gold F thing, right? But I just wouldn't want to lose those because kids work really hard and it's hard to, they've had a lot of losses. it'd be nice to give them a win.
Sure.
Yeah, Peter.
The alumni has met, and 66 of the seniors will be recognized. It'll be on FATV Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. So that will continue, the Alumni
That's good.
Association.
Yeah.
7 o'clock Wednesday, FATV.
I know there is some school things, like with the high school, the seniors do have, this year, they are doing seniors superlatives, which is, even though it's a small thing, it still is a good thing to show a little sense of normalness.
Jack, do you know if they're going to do another car parade or anything like that?
Not that, none of them I've heard of from Mr. Roach, and it's not in like any of the dates. I haven't heard any talk or anything like that.
Okay.
All set, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, approval of the minutes from the previous school committee meeting, May 3rd, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made to approve,
Second?
and I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Executive session, not at this time. I believe there were a few communications. Ms. Cragan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first communication is I'm really thrilled to announce that the therapy pets have returned to Rheingold School and Longzhou. We are making some visits that are out of doors, and it's really great to see the kids get back to reading to our therapy pets. So thank you to those schools. Again, if there are teachers who are interested, they should reach out to me. I'm very easily found anywhere on the web. The other piece is that on Thursday, it is the 10th anniversary of the Janet Cragan Youth Arts Awards. I had the most amazing mother who gave so much to this community, especially with the arts. The Fitchburg Cultural Alliance will be honoring 24 students, and I'm going to very quickly say their names and their schools so that they have their names said aloud on the amazing FATV School Committee show. From Longzhou, Kyra Colon, Gabriela Ramirez, Melanie Cruz, Jaslyn Orris, Annika Sundstrom, and Jacob Ketahar. From Sizer, Ishel Thibault Munoz, Callie Seeger, Amelia Robertson, Joelle Osgood, Rain Ramos, and Violet Malley. From McKay, Jada Akelfi, Dennis Williams Jr., Alizea Diaz, Olivia Michaud, Alicia Diaz, and Gabriana Siamos. And from Memorial, James Cannon, Kayla Yang, Wesley De Leon Menjivar, Mayronelli Vazquez Pacheco, and Georgiana Gallo, and Michael Murphy. And these are middle schoolers who are being honored for their achievements in the arts, in performing arts and music arts and visual arts and writing and drama. And when this award started, my mom was able to give it herself. And she is with us now in spirit, always. So I look forward to meeting the students, and thanks to Fitchburg Cultural Alliance and Sima Park, where we're going to be having it. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Cragan. Seeing none, I don't believe we have anyone waiting for public comment. Is that correct, Mr. Glennie? Maybe Mr. Glennie is not here.
Mr. Glenn is not here today.
He is not here, okay. I don't believe there is. We have not been notified of such, so moving on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Superintendent.
The first presentation tonight, we have Eva Kelly and a handful of staff who have attended the UMass Amherst Translation Center interpretation course. And Eva is going to introduce the individuals who have completed that course. And Eva, I turn the screen and mic over to you. So,
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Just real quick, I just wanted to tell you what we're here to celebrate. The Fitchburg Public Schools was given the opportunity to participate in the translation and interpretation pilot sponsored by the Department of Education this year. And part of that pilot was training staff that are already bilingual staff to be interpreters and go through the training program. It's 7 courses, total of 21 hours, and we had some really great successes. I'm going to read the names, and we have some of our graduates here tonight, and they'd like to say a few words. So Veronica Rodriguez, who works at the central office, participated. She's not here tonight. Melissa Hernandez, who is with us. She works at Rheingold Elementary School. Justnelia Acevedo from McKay Arts Academy. Talia Maranas, she's not here with us, I don't believe. She works at South Street Elementary School. And Luisa Fernandez, who is currently at the central office. So they'd like to say a few words. I'm so excited they made it, and I'd like them to talk about the program a little bit. So whoever wants to go first, you guys pick.
I guess I'll go first. So this program was really, really beneficial, I feel. Being a secretary at a school that I'm mainly the person who speaks Spanish, I look to from a lot of teachers, all staff for translating, whether it's a short document that they want to send out to families or a phone conversation or a meeting. A lot of times it's last minute, so it's really good to be prepared in the proper way to handle things. So I definitely learned one thing, that I know a lot less Spanish than I thought I did. It was definitely a challenge, and it was really interesting to find things that you don't really go through when you're just kind of thrown into a situation, but now I know how to handle a situation a lot better. And thank you for the opportunity.
Justnelia, is there anything you want to add?
Yes. So I am the home liaison at McKay Arts Academy, and I found that the program was very beneficial. I do have a medical interpreter course that I took before, but the school setting was a whole lot educational, because it's different than when you're in the medical field. And one thing I learned is that you have to interpret everything word for word, because, if you miss at least one word, you can just mess up the whole communication between both parties. And just like Melissa, I am the only Spanish-speaking person that works in the office, both Spanish and English. And I am looked for a lot by the teachers, every staff, even the therapists, everybody. So I'm really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Okay, and lastly, Luisa.
Well, the same. Thank you very much for this amazing opportunity. I feel very proud, and thank you for picking me and give me this opportunity. And I think this is helping me to serve better our families and our community. And I think that's the goal. So I'm very happy. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, and I know Veronica from Central Office isn't able to be here tonight, and Talia as well. We want to be able to connect better with our families and our students throughout the district. So this is an important effort that we're trying to do, and we'd like to have more. So thank you, Eva, for coordinating this for the district.
Mr. Superintendent, I've got a question for the folks. Do you find it challenging because of differences in dialects, that kind of thing? So Spanish is not everyone speaks the same Spanish, correct? That's the challenge, right?
The challenge is more different countries have different accents, as well as some countries use more slang words than proper Spanish.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So just trying to find words that other people from different countries, like for example, I'm from the Dominican Republic, so if I were to find a word, or if I were interpreting for someone that was from Venezuela or Uruguay or something, I would have to try to figure out a word that they would understand. because my word that I use in the Dominican Republic wouldn't be the same that they would use in their country. So that's the only barrier. But most of the time, they understand, and I'm very successful.
All right, here's a quiz for the three of you. How do you say thin in Spanish, or skinny?
Flaco.
Flaco, right? Flaco?
Yeah.
I thought that was
Flaco
more
or
of a
flaca?
slang. It's not. Okay, all right. And what about money? Chavo?
No,
Is that a
it's
slang?
people from Dominican Republic and from Puerto Rico, they say chavo.
Chavo, right, okay. All
Plata o dinero.
right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Superintendent,
Eva.
could I?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that we're so lucky to have you, and it's great that you all took this additional training to just really even be, I don't know, perfect your jobs, because thank goodness you're there, right? It's interesting. I didn't realize that some of you are the only person that, is sort of the go-to person. So that's good. Like, what happens, though, if you're absent?
They tell them to call back tomorrow.
Well, thank you.
This course actually did open up a lot of doors for resources to help you for things like I work with Mrs. Jollymore for special education, so sometimes I have to interpret for their families, and I found like this whole world of interpretations for IEPs and stuff like that. I was like, yep, save, bookmark, yep, mine, yep, print, yep.
All right.
Thank you for presenting.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for completing the program.
Great job.
Glad to have you all part of the Fitchburg team.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So next on the agenda, we have a brief presentation by the Crockerfield Restoration Committee. We have Tom Lamy and Jeff Bennett, and I was going to say, defer to the folks at FATV who have succinctly brought Tom and Jeff to us. So we have had some conversations, I guess, with a variety of parties in regards to renovating the historic Crocker Field to include turf, replace the lights, and also potentially a track. And Jeff and Tom have really been the leads trying to gauge the philanthropic interest in the community. And one of the big prospects is a grant from the NFL Foundation, which is on tonight's agenda. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jeff Bennett, who is a 1981 graduate of Fitchburg High School, and Tom Lamy. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Bob. Can Tom share the presentation for everybody? I think he has. Does he have the rights to do that through the?
Yes.
Not yet.
Okay, let's see.
Superintendent.
I think it's up there now. Can you see it?
Not yet.
It's crazy.
Let's see. How about now?
It's on its way. We can see it now.
Here we
Thanks,
go.
Tom.
Okay. Let me just get the presentation mode in here. All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be with all of you tonight. As Bob mentioned, the Crockerfield Restoration Committee has been working on a number of initiatives over many years, and as of late, over the last year or year and a half, we've been working on the next phase, which is to potentially add some nice features that Bob was just referring to. So I'm going to give you a little update on some things, as well as asking for some help with respect to our efforts around the NFL. If you could go to the next slide, Tom. I think most of you are aware, but I think it's worthy to kind of set the table with respect to the efforts that have gone on. The Crocker Field restoration has been a true collaborative effort between the Crocker Field Restoration Committee, the public schools, as well as the city of Fitchburg. And clearly our goal is perfectly aligned with each organization's objective. One is we want to enhance equity and access to the field. This goes for all students within the public school system, as well as for those youth that play in the sports leagues, and potentially to use the facility for the community at large. As you know, over the last few years, because of the quality of the turf field, access has been limited, and therefore it's created and not an equitable position with how all children have been able to access the facility. But just to state, as we've pursued these efforts over the last 15 to 20 years, it's been a true collaborative partnership between these three organizations. If you go to the next slide, just some examples. Over this period of time, over $2 million of improvements have been made to the field. These include a number of things, obviously the scoreboard, the press box, the snack bar, the new visitor stands, a lot of work around the stadium seating on the home side of the field. So a great deal of effort has been made over this period of time, over $2 million through a very strong collaboration between these three organizations. But at this point in time, more work is necessary. If you go to the next slide, Tom. The next phase that we are working on right now, trying to assess is the financial capabilities from the philanthropic side, as well as assess the specifics of what we would need to do to pull this off. But essentially, we want to move the natural grass surface to that of being an artificial turf. We want to upgrade the stadium lighting, and we'd like to pursue a new track. So those are the three components of this next phase that we are looking at as a committee. If you go to the next slide, Tom. This is a rendering of an upgraded Crocker Field with turf. We would replace all of the natural grass surface that's inside the track. And this field would be a true multi-sport field. It would serve football, soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, other sports that that could be played on an artificial turf, and as well an upgrade to the track. You'll notice a full complement of lines for all of the sports, and something that we're looking at here. We understand the rich history of football in Fitchburg, but we're looking at the needs of the children and the school system today. And we play 5 home football games a year, but we could play hundreds and hundreds of other games in these other sports. So this isn't a fully gridded football field. This is a multi-sports field that's lined for many different sports, and of course we'd line it for football when we play football. So this is a rendering of what the end product would look like when we're done. If you move to the next slide, I talk about goal of access and equity, which is in line with what we're all working on within the school system and within the city. This chart, though, is quite remarkable. When you look at the current use of Crocker Field, if I point you to the left side of this slide, of course, we play varsity football. We can use it for track and for graduation and for the relays, but we can't use it for really any other sport. So by moving to the turf field with upgraded lighting, the amount of access that we'll be able to provide, as you can see on the left side, is really all of the sports that we play at Fitchburg High School, as well as within the middle schools. It would allow us to also, potentially host MIA tournaments at the end of seasons, band competitions as another option. So great improvement of access by moving to turf. And then on the right side, as you look at potential community use for Crocker Field, really limited, if any, access at all today for any of the youth sports or any community groups whatsoever. But with a turf field, there'll be the potential for playing at night, also playing, through the day and on the weekends, really for all sports for the schools as well as for the youth programs. Turf fields really provide a tremendous amount of access, and they drain really well, and they drain really quickly. So you can use them in stormy weather. You can use them really not 12 months of the year, but a long period of time that you surely can't use a grass field. If you go to the next slide, this shows you just what we want to get to, which is all teams wearing the red and gray, being able to play on their field, which is Crocker Field. All children running in the all-school relays with the aspiration to either play for a sport team or play for the band, and play on that field as every kid that goes to Fitchburg should do. Next slide, Tom. So one of the things that we've been looking at and we have been engaged with is the NFL, through a partnership with the Local Initiative Support Corporation, provides grants to communities like Fitchburg across the country. There are two different types of grants. One are to help with the funding of an artificial turf field, either a new field or the renovation of an old field like we have at Crocker Field. They also offer a second grant to upgrade stadium lighting. And we have been engaged with the NFL and the LISC folks for about a year and a half now to learn about the program, to see how it works, to see how it's been implemented in many other communities in New England, but also across the country. And we have been able to, through that collaboration, have Fitchburg been added to the list of potential target markets that the NFL and LISC would actually allow to participate in the grant process. So we were awarded that opportunity earlier this year, and we are now at a point where we've been working on what our application for the grant could actually look like. It's due at the end of the month of May, and understanding the governance of the Fitchburg public school systems before we could actually proceed with actually applying for the grant. If you go to the next slide, Tom, one of the things that's necessary is to come before you as a school committee to ask, to update you on what we're trying to do and the rationale for this, but also to ask of your approval so that we could potentially move forward and make this application at the end of the month. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. I wanted to give you a feel for what we're trying to do and what we're looking at for the potential next phase of the Crocker Field restoration. And specifically, the ask here tonight is for you to consider it and hopefully approve the opportunity for our group to advance with this grant application at the end of May. And I would ask of any questions that any of you might have about anything we might have shared or what our objectives are.
We have been meeting on a regular basis. Jeff, I want to thank you for your efforts. You put in a lot of hard work on this, and you as well, Tom. Thank you. And I'm hoping, and I believe we will. I believe the committee will support this. I hope they do. It is a sacrosanct area of the city. It's part of what I consider to be the Main Street development, because that is part of what we're trying to do in moving toward enhanced economic development. So long overdue, and the efforts put in by everyone on the committee is certainly to be applauded. So thank all of them. And any other questions, I suppose?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
While we have Mr. Bennett and Mr. Lamy on, could we take this out of order for action items?
There's just one adjustment to the actual vote language that, just to be clear, the NFL Foundation requires that the applying entity employ at least one full-time individual. And as Crocker Field Restoration Committee does not employ a full-time individual, the school department has agreed to submit the grant, and that is acceptable to the NFL folks. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
So the slight change in wording that I would ask as you vote on it tonight would be to approve the superintendent's recommendation to support the Fitchburg Public Schools / Crocker Field Restoration Committee's submittal. So originally, when it went out on the agenda, it was just the Crocker Field Restoration Committee's submittal. But it really requires us to be named because we have one full-time employee. So that's the technical language change for the action item.
We should vote on that amendment?
Yes. I'll make the motion to amend 2175- to include the Fitchburg Public Schools.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to change or to amend the line item 2175, recommendation to support the Fitchburg Public Schools / Crocker Field Restoration Committee's submittal of the following grant titled NFL Foundations /LISC grant, $300,000 for the purpose of installing artificial turf and replace lighting at Crocker Field for the athletic and extracurricular benefit for the students attending Fitchburg Public Schools. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, it is unanimous. Thank you.
I'll make a recommendation that we vote now on 21-75.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to vote on 21-75. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you again.
Okay. You are free to apply.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Tom. Talk soon.
Well, thanks. Good to see you all.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The next item on tonight's agenda is the field trip to Canopy Lake Park for our middle school students this summer, as it is an out-of-state field trip. School committee vote is required. That is an action item tonight on the agenda.
Jokola, I have a question
Okay.
on this Canopy Lake Park. It's under number of students, 100, and chaperones, 5, with a ratio of 20 to 1. I don't think that's adequate. We have another one that's coming up where they have a 10 to 1 ratio, and I think it should be at least a 10 to 1 ratio and not 20 to 1.
I think that form's wrong. Mr. Stevens, I think it should say the same. Thank you.
Should be 10?
Yeah, it should be 10.
10, number of adults, 10 to 20.
Yeah. Where's the middle school poll? Over the other one. Yeah, number of adults, 20. I think these are just ballpark figures.
Yeah.
Since we have a number of staff, so the staff right now for the elementary program should be at least close to 35 to 40. So we'll definitely have the staff to be able to make sure there's correct ratios between adults and students.
Okay, thank you. No further questions on that? I support it.
So just to clarify, this is both for elementary, the elementary program for the summer that we're running, and the middle school program that we're running.
Okay. Yep.
Quick question.
Yes.
Will both groups be going on the same day? Separate
Going
time?
on different days.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I think it's a range of days, isn't it, Mr. Thompson?
Our program's running from June 28th to August 6th, so it'll be one of those days that they'll be going, one day for elementary and one day for middle school.
I think they have to get tickets, and so they're going to have to find a day they can go.
Yeah, so we have to, in order for us to attend, we have to register with them in advance to make sure that they have enough space for us, so.
And the details on that are listed in the additional pages beyond the grant cover, not the grant cover sheet, the field trip approval form in terms of the advanced requirements, mask wearing, safety precautions are all listed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the proposed school committee calendar for next school year. The calendar follows the same meeting frequency as the current year. We have no scheduled meetings this summer. School committee meetings resume in September. There's one in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, 1 in December, 1 in January, 2 in February, March, April, May, and June, the first and third Mondays of the month.
Okay. We need a vote on that?
There will be an action item vote on it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And the next item we have on the agenda for report is really the two things, 2 votes for collaborative membership for the upcoming school year. One is for Keystone Educational Collaborative. The school committee votes on that selection. And also there was another change to the agenda just in terms of the wording for the CAPS Collaborative member, and really that number, which is 21-71-2021, it should be approved nomination of, fill in the blank, to serve as school committee representative to the CAPS Collaborative.
I will be recommending Mr. Jokela to represent the school committee on the Keystone Board of Directors.
Is that a formal recommendation?
Yes, I will make that, yes.
Any further nominations?
And then there's,
You're it.
well, for Keystone, but then there's CAPS Collaborative, and the school committee needs to make a nomination of one of its members to that collaborative's board.
Nominate Mr. Stevens once again.
Second.
Done such an outstanding job, and he's willing to continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. And then before we get to the budget portion of this evening's presentation or meeting, we have the formal school choice vote that the school committee is required to make at least on an annual basis, saying that the school district will accept school choice in students. At this time, the recommendation to accept school choice in students has no restrictions on grade level or school. Is that correct, Eva?
Good.
Okay, so Eva, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think I would agree we should leave it open and allow students that would like to enter our schools to come in. We have for a number of years now, so I don't know if you have any questions about the numbers around school choice right now, or what grade levels, or does anyone have any questions I could answer for you?
Just curiosity.
How many overall school choice?
School choicing into the district is 233.
Is that normally is that a static number, so to speak? Does it move a little?
It's fluid. You know, people come and go every year. We have most of our school choice students are at the high school level, grades 11 and 12, either at Fitchburg High or Goodrich Academy. And we have between 10 and 15 at the other grade levels.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe to answer your question more directly, I think it ranges, well, between maybe 230 and 250 students per year. Eva?
Yeah, it's in it, yeah. But again, all year long, we have students coming in and out,
Good.
so.
Okay.
Mr. Walsh?
Question for Ava. This year, there's 230 students who are coming in. What's the number of students, do we know the number of students in Fitchburg who do school choice going outside the district?
I do have that number. It's from the school attending report in October. We actually submitted it in January. It's 452.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that includes charter schools, that includes Monty Peck and private schools.
Okay.
So if you want, I have all the detailed numbers. If anyone would like a copy of this report, I'd be happy to send it to you so you can take a look at it.
How many kids
Yeah.
go to Monty Tech?
Yeah, just, how about Fitchburg, just Fitchburg?
Fitchburg to Monty Tech?
Right, yeah.
Pittsburgh to Monty Tech, yeah, those would be the numbers I have. Right now, there are 354 students from Pittsburgh going to Monty Tech.
Can you say the number again, Eva?
354.
The Monty Tech number is separate from the school choice out number.
We don't count that.
No. Right,
We have
no, that's not
350,
counted.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you just say, Bob?
The Monty Tech number of 354 is not part of the 450.
Oh, so it's really it's 800 something kids?
Right, and then plus the charter as well, because charter is not school choice. Charter
count that either.
is separate.
We have 221 charter school students.
So all told, that's roughly, what, 900,000 students?
Yes.
First you said 900,000.
No, 900 to 1,000.
900 to 1,000.
I'm trying to,
Yeah.
Could I know I need to talk with other members of the student support to get another meeting scheduled, but that sounds like it might be a good topic to kind of discuss because, for years we've set the goal that we're not gonna lose as many kids. I think COVID has made everything really difficult to be able to measure, but from your sense, do you feel, Bob, that we're making any ground on not losing students?
well, on the Monty Tech enrollment, we just had a meeting, the high school and the middle schools a couple of weeks ago, and the annual number of students electing to enroll at Monty Tech as freshmen used to be in the 90s, high 80s, 90s range, and I think now it's in the mid 60s. So we are making progress on that front in terms of making sure that Fitchburg High is, viewed as the option for comprehensive education and not Monty Tech. I think the school choice numbers out, and I haven't looked at the chart for a while, but it might have crept up a little bit this past October versus the prior year. I'm looking at Eva on the TV screen for either confirmation of that.
Right now, I'm just looking at this past year. I can get that information for everyone.
I think COVID, I think, did have some level of impact, hard to say, and when we talk in the budget, we'll talk a little bit more about what we've seen on the enrollment front overall for the district. But yeah. But I think just to clarify too, and that report that Eva is referring to, this school enrollment report, that covers all students who live in Fitchburg, what schools they attend. So whether it's the 5,600 students who attend Fitchburg Public Schools, the number that attend parochial schools, the number that attend charter schools, and then also the number who attend Monty Tech as well. So it's the most comprehensive report. So if we were to take the total number, in Eva, I don't know if you have that handy, but I guess the total number is what, 6,500 or?
6722.
6722. And out of that number, we have how many in our schools?
From this report, it was 5075, sorry, 5075. 5,075, am I there?
That's not.
Sorry. I just shared it with you. Oh. Can you hear me?
No, there's
Sorry.
the 6722, but I guess I'm just trying to see how that reconciles with the DESI number, which is what, 50, and I'm looking over at Craig right now, and I could bring it up, the 5644, I think is the number that we have for enrollment. So if I take the DESI number for our enrollment, there's roughly 1,180 students who attend all other schools other than Fitchburg Public Schools.
Preschool is not included in this report, so that's part of.
No, it's not.
Okay,
No,
there you go.
it's
That's
not.
part of it.
There you go.
No preschool.
And some out-of-district students are also, they're still enrolled in Fitchburg Public Schools, even though they attend.
They attend schools, right.
So that's where you see the difference.
They
Yeah,
recur.
the collaboratives and, Yep. Okay.
So,
For collaboratives, we have 88 students.
so another question, Ava. So the 452 who did school choice out of the district, these are
Yeah.
students who live in Fitchburg who opted to go to another public school district?
That's correct.
Doesn't include Monty Tech, doesn't charter schools, doesn't include parochial schools, private
Right.
schools? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is homeschool included in that?
Homeschool,
Column first.
we have 197.
And that's pretty static as well.
Correct, yeah. We've had some pull out this year, but already we've had some coming back.
I don't know what we'd do if most of those students came back. We wouldn't have any place to put them.
Yeah.
Thank God we have some in the other schools.
Thank you, Ava.
Okay,
Thanks.
Yep.
thank you, Eva. Okay, so moving on to the budget. It's
Superintendent Joko, can I ask just one question?
Sure.
In light of the announcement today by the governor, will we have specific information on the high school graduation for this year, in light of masks being done and going back to normal as of?
There is additional guidance that will be coming out in the next couple days. The Department of Ed had issued some guidance a few months ago on graduation requirements where the spacing was reduced from 6 feet to 3 feet.
Okay.
So as soon as that guidance is distributed, they did address face masks are not required outdoors and the athletics. So this is breaking news.
Okay.
Coming out, and there's more to come out.
Okay.
So we'll be sharing that as soon as it's final.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So thank you, Craig, for bringing the budget presentation up on the screen. It is that time of the year in the calendar when we come before you. Tonight is the first reading of the budget. Tonight, Craig Shalafo and I will be providing a summary of where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish. And I can't remember the final number of slides, Craig. It is over 20. We will do our best to provide summaries on this. And without further ado, let's get going.
Good.
Maybe that'll be a little longer than 20 slides.
Okay. Or it just might be one slide, Craig.
Let me stop here and try this again.
There we go.
Trying every button. Yep, here we go.
Okay, great. So, as we did at the last school committee meeting, we wanted to just talk about our goals and commitments, what we're really trying to accomplish at a district level. So first of all, just starting with our goal theory of action, and really it is a partnership of our staff, families, and community partners to work together to identify and remove barriers so all our students can grow and achieve. And we want them to be ready to learn and access high-quality core instructions and social emotional supports. Then we have identified 4 pillars of our strategy going forward that our budget ties into and what we're going to be working on next year. Number 1, curriculum that's accessible to and reflective of students. Recently, the school committee just approved the new K-5 reading curriculum. That's one example of that. tiered system of academic and social emotional support district-wide. That's something that we've been working on this year and we'll be implementing next year. Staff development and diversity recruitment plan. The latter was presented at a school committee meeting in April, and we are committed to growing staff in all our various units, whether they be teachers, paraprofessionals, custodians, food service, clerical, and administrative leadership. And really, what's really important here is the last bullet here in terms of creating and expanding our sense of welcoming and belonging for our students, parents, staff, and all members of the community. If students and their parents and our staff feel welcome, everybody's going to be excited to learn and to teach. So as Eva Kelly just talked about the enrollment and a much more comprehensive enrollment summary of all the students in Fitchburg where they go to school, this is our weekly management report generated by our software platform, X2, that shows the enrollment distribution by all our schools. Fitchburg High School is our largest school. We do have out-of-district, and that is not school choice, but that is students whose individual education plans call for specific schools. We have 139 students attending different schools, and again, a breakdown of each school's enrollment. The key thing to note that clearly not only Fitchburg, but almost every school district across the state and many across the country incurred a decrease in enrollment from the year prior to COVID. In Fitchburg, that number was 171 students, which in Chapter 70 funding and using the average student spend of about $14,000, I think it's $14,200, translates into about $2.4 million enrollment-related funding decrease. Since October, we have had 40 students enroll in our district, so we're hoping that as we reopen and now are in still I'll call it a two-mode model of full day in school and full day in home, and then in the fall across the state, everybody only has one option, and that is full day in-person learning. As Eva mentioned, one of the things, focus areas, not only in Fitchburg, but in communities across the Commonwealth, are the kindergarten enrollment numbers. So based on historical trends, where we're at right now is consistent with historical trends. Again, this next slide is right from the Department of Ed website, really just giving a background of our students, who they are, who we are, and for the most current fiscal or current school year. Again, the Latino Hispanic student population is our largest population at almost 56%, and really the students of color are about 74% in our district. And again, on the right-hand side, the selected populations, first language, not English, is 37%. My eyes aren't as good, I'd have to bring it up locally here. 37%. Our English language learners are just under 16%. Our students with disabilities, 24%. High needs, almost 76%, and economically disadvantaged is about 66%. Again, continuing our review of who we are and student demographics, we wanted to look back 5 years and just compare and contrast what, if any, trends we've seen across the district in terms of our student groups. And really and also we have the district numbers and the state numbers. So tonight we'll just really talk about the district numbers. And as you can see, the big changes are that the Hispanic Latino community, student community, has increased from 49.3% to 55.6% of our student enrollment. And our white population has decreased from 32.7% to 26.2% of our student population. Digging a little bit deeper, we also looked at our staff demographics. That was one of the things that was pointed out back almost a year ago with our inclusivity appraisal. And as we look at our hiring practices, this is something that we'll be reporting out annually to the school committee and the community in general. So as you can see here, from a staffing perspective, the district, like the Commonwealth, is not necessarily a very diverse workforce. In Fitchburg, from a numbers perspective, 5 years ago, we had 18 staff identified as African American. In the current school year, we had 11, we get to half, so I'll just round up to 12. Our Hispanic population, teaching population, increased from 47 to 61, and there was a slight decrease in the white teacher population, and staff who identify as multi-race, non-Hispanic, increased by 2. And again, just our head count in staffing increased a total of 9. Continuing along some of the language that was included in our inclusivity appraisal, looking at our staffing, and disproportionality is the technical term. Our students who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color are 73.7%. Our staff who are Black, Indigenous, people of color is 12.4%. So there's a difference of 61.3%. As we presented to the school committee back in April, our efforts in terms of updating our recruitment strategy, we're really moving from a passive to an active recruitment practice. We identified some of the tools that we were using now, like Handshake.com, in addition to SchoolSpring and other sources, as well as reaching out and expanding on our contact with a variety of schools and other professional networks. And as I mentioned earlier in the first slide, creating that environment of inclusion and belonging, and also expanding our staff's cultural proficiency. So again, just kind of going back and forth to the data, one that was from the Department of Ed website, and I think it might have been the second or third slide in, just looking at changes within our students. First language, not English, from the 2021 to 2016-17 to 2021, that has increased from 31% to 37%. Our English language learners have increased from 11.2% to 15.5%. Students with disabilities has largely stayed stable, a slight increase. High needs increased from 70.3 to 75.6. And our economically disadvantaged increased from 58.9 to 66.4 for a 7.5% increase. These increases in population are important because when we get to the Student Opportunity Act, they are drivers for what increased our overall net funding despite having an enrollment decrease of 171 students. So I asked Mr. Shalfo just to kind of include here the mobility rates of our students. Again, just looking at a variety of data to look at, students entering our schools, students leaving our schools. I think, a historic number or a word of mouth number that people had used for several years was that our churn rate was around 20 to 25%. So this table here captures what it looks like across several different subgroups. And I think the interesting and positive difference between 2015 and 2020 is that actually the churn rate actually decreased here for all students from 21.2% back in 2015 to 14.3%. Now, these are 2020 numbers. We don't have 2021 mobility numbers. This is the most recent data we have, and that's what we're sharing with you tonight. So you can compare and contrast and see what, if any, change has been from 2015. But I think almost consistently across the board, I think maybe with the exception of the Asian subgroup here, there's been a decrease in the churn. So again, before we get into the finances, again, we're just trying to repeat and share out our goals and commitments, what we're trying to do. And with that as an introduction, now Mr. Shalfo gets both the screen and the mic. So take it away, Craig.
And again, I think it's important for us to start showing this slide as the driver for what we're looking to accomplish this coming year, and in particular with our funding. And also, as we mentioned last time that we met, remembering what Student Opportunity Act is designed for, and that's educating special education students, English language learners, educating economically disadvantaged students in high needs, and providing guidance and psychological services for all of our students. And that's a critical piece to what we're looking at, and the impact that the foundation budget has, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on the next slide. But the foundation budget has increased by $3.4 million. We know that our Chapter 70 budget has increased by $3.1 million, and yet our October 1st numbers for next year has a decline of 171, largely due to the pandemic, but at the expense of $2.4 million, which is a critical number for us to remember. The re-engagement piece is critical so that we can bring as many students who are still here back into schools. And I know that Eva and her team in the enrollment center are getting out to get those kindergarten parents signed up for this coming school year. The great mystery will be how many of the 171 will we see in return coming back next year. And that will have obviously a considerable impact on FY23 funding. Also, a driving force behind our budget for this year is the ESSER grant, which we've discussed numerous times. And just a reminder that the ESSER money, which in FY22 will be $7.4 million, and again, it's addressing parent engagement, tracking attendance, improving student engagement, addressing low-income children, providing technology, remote learning. There's a considerable piece for upgrading ventilation and HVAC systems throughout the district, providing us for whatever resources we will need next year for PPE and COVID testing as that continues, and really looking at the teaching and learning, looking at the learning loss, and making sure that we are providing the highest quality instructional materials and instruction that we can across the board. Things that the ESSER funds cannot be used for, obviously bonuses and merit pay, and we discussed this last meeting, subsidizing or offsetting executive salaries and expenditures related to state or local teaching and faculty union associations in the form of salary increases. So again, I think it's as we go through this, it's really important that we're considering what the Student Opportunity Act is designed to do, and then what ESSER will be doing in supplementing those funds. Kind of this year, as we look back at the pandemic interruptions, obviously numerous adjustments to our teaching model, instructional practices, having data to provide to you this evening, which we typically do, and it's it's very data driven. We don't have that data necessarily because the state testing has been paused. Students will be participating in MCAS this year. We have our iReady data, which we've been using throughout the pandemic to help drive our instructional practices and our data teams at the building level. Obviously, remote learning, transitions and adjustments, access to technology and internet, these are all things that we've discussed. Access for our families for childcare as they return to in-person learning. Again, the learning loss, the socialization, which is a critical piece. Getting back to normalcy and some predictability for our students as well as our staff. And as Jean, as you mentioned, getting back to our traditions and the experiences for our students so that we can provide them with that strong culture as they come back to school and we look to move forward next year. Also very important, I put expanded summer school. Unprecedented has been used quite often, but we have twice as many students and teachers that will be participating in summer programming this summer, which is kudos to our professional staff for knowing the importance of this, and obviously to the families as well. So as Bob alluded to earlier, looking at our foundation budget as it correlates with our enrollment, and we saw this considerable drop in FY22 due to the pandemic. Just some highlighted areas as you're looking at how the foundation budget is calculated, and we've discussed this several times. The enrollment drop of 171 students, that's at a loss of nearly $3.5 million. When you look a little bit more closely at the numbers, from that, we had 179 pre-K and K students that were not with us this year prior to last year, and that's $1.1 million loss when you compare just the K and the pre-K numbers from last year to this year. Economically disadvantaged students, we actually increased 278 students, and also the funding for the social economic disadvantaged students increased by $550 per student. And this is largely in the impact of the Student Opportunity Act and the driving forces behind it. English language learners, again, we had 59 fewer students for a loss of $56,000, and then special education students, although it was a loss, it was still calculated differently in this year's foundation budget, so it was an increase of $61,000. So as Bob mentioned, it's really these driving metrics and how they're related to the foundation, how the foundation budget is calculated, which will bring us to our final numbers. Again, just the Chapter 70 trends over the last 5 years. We've been looking at this $60.8 million number for quite some time. And just looking at the school spending summary, which is provided to us annually from City Hall, the numbers that we have that are important here, the school budget, as it's proposed now at $66,300,000. That's a $3 million increase over last year. We know that, and we've discussed that the transportation increases, at least as it looks right now, is about $1 million, $1.1 million increase. And then if you go down at the bottom here, you see a negative number. So we know that the city will be underfunding us right now for net school spending of $500,000 with the anticipation of an appropriation at some point next fall. Some of this is due to questions around transportation, and Calvin will provide us with additional information as we move forward. Obviously, this is the budget that we have, and this is the budget that we're planning for at this time. Number that we've been, discussing again is our step increases and for this coming year. Something that we've been tracking that I haven't added, but we have a little bit more of a better calculation, is if you look down here, I have it highlighted in gray, an additional $200,000. These are anticipated teacher lane changes, which we've been tracking. I think we average probably in the low 20s to mid 20s each year. This year we're in the upper 50s. So indeed, if all of these, and that doesn't mean that everyone will meet their obligation and their credit obligations to get the lane change, but we're budgeting now for that additional $200,000 plus, which brings our obligations to almost $861,000. So that's a number that we've been looking at. I just wanted to make sure that we added in this additional number for anticipated lane changes. So again, the 171 student decline FY21-22, the increased foundation budget for per pupil at $14,267, and again, that enrollment loss of $2.4 million. We have the $3 million increase in our school budget from FY21 to 22, and again, that increased salary rollover cost of $861,000. So just kind of looking at all buckets of money, in blue here is the city, which we just discussed. Circuit breaker numbers are not out yet. Hopefully we'll have time in the coming weeks to update everyone. Again, grants is something that we've been looking at, our title grants. We don't anticipate any shortfalls there. That roughly estimated at $2.9 million, the Perkins grant, which we have annually at $32,000. Our special education grant, 1.7, and then the ESSER 2 grant, which will be this coming fiscal year at 7.4, for a total of estimated $12 million in grants for this coming school year. School choice, again, we had a balance of $2.5 million in school choice. And I listed here what we typically fund at school-based instructional and school supplies, our science materials, middle school athletics, high school musical, early childhood, the Footsteps to Brilliance, college readiness, for a total of $650,000. It's anticipated right now in our rollover, or our increase of another $936,000, which would bring our total FY22 school choice to $3.5 million. And then our capital expenditures, which I have a few more slides to get a little bit more detail of that. AHERA, in addressing our AHERA management plan district-wide, is a critical component of our capital strategic plan, and we're still getting more detailed analysis from ATC Environmental Group to really help us with prioritizing the projects that we want to get started as soon as we can. As we've mentioned, they have done a considerable amount of testing around the district over the last several months. So their analysis of each building has changed considerably because of the increased testing that they've been providing. So we no longer have to assume some materials as being asbestos containing. We can rule them out or rule them in based on the increased amount of testing that they've been doing. And ventilation, HVAC, building controls, building envelopes. And I know that Mr. Richardson and his team have been looking very closely at ADA access, particularly at Rheingold. I know that the Veterans Group is starting some of that work now. We have a sizable project to upgrade the front of Fitchburg High School due to much of the deterioration of the cement out in front of the school building. And I know that they're working currently on the ramp at Longjo Middle School, the ramp into the library. And this is a summary of the new positions that we're looking at. And as I started this presentation, it's really a balance between what we have for city funds and what we can use out of the ESSER grant. The ESSER grant does allow us to fund salaries and positions, and we want to make sure that we don't overspend our grants so that we are putting too many salaries into grant funding so that when the grants go away, we're faced with a funding cliff to cover the additional staffing. But if you look at the list of staff, you know, it's very much targeted, as the superintendent has indicated, around our 4 pillars, addressing our L population. So there's a new an additional L teacher at each building. There's also a need for, and we think in terms of Title I instruction, but these academic support teachers will be based on a Title I model, but will be funded out of grant funding at this time. We also have, at least right now, we've discussed the addition of an assistant principal at Fitchburg High School, which we think is overdue, and also the potential for additional staff at Fitchburg High as well. So this is a tentative list. As we move down into the district, we're looking at the addition of 4 curriculum coordinators. The critical piece to this, and if we compare this back to the grant and what our goal is around teaching and learning, these curriculum coordinators will be master teachers, and our goal for them is to provide our teaching staff the support to improve their teaching and address best practices. So this is really a little different model, I think, than maybe in the past, but we're really looking for the right personnel in these 4 curriculum areas that can provide that in-classroom support in the building to our coaches so that we can really increase our best practices in instruction. And in conversation with Ms. Spinney, we're also looking at another IT network person. We know the importance of cybersecurity and what we're being faced with, so I think that's a critical piece as well. And then the other part is the 7 clinical interventionists. We've mentioned these before, but this is really to address the effects of the pandemic. This will give, clinical work at each building throughout the district. So,
Something quick just before we go on here, and just going back to whether it be the Student Opportunity Act and aligning it with really the changes in our student population, our student needs, and also our staff needs, as Craig mentioned. Adding the curriculum coordinators. We used to have 2 curriculum coordinators in English Language Arts and Math, and we're looking to add social studies and also science-based curriculum coordinator to help our teachers going forward. Those are identified as key needs. And again, the reason for the differentiation between city and grant is, someday the grants will go away, not for a few years. So we're trying to make our city portion of the budget long-term sustainable.
and again, just reflecting back to the 171 students, that's $2.4 million, which would then come back to our budget if they all came back to school next year. So meeting that balance between what we're funding out of grants and what we're funding with our own school budget is very critical. And again, I have this slide, we've discussed this many times, but the 4 bulleted points at the bottom. So we have about $400,000 in our current grants, the coronavirus relief grant. That will need to be used by the end of June. And then we have our ESSER 1 grant. We have about $1 million remaining. That will be done at the end of September of this year. And then looking ahead to next year, the ESSER 2, which we'll be writing in that grant, the deadline is the end of June. We want to make sure that we have all our checks and balances in place before we finalize that grant. But that'll end in September of 2023. And then the larger ESSER 3 grant, which is another $16.6 million, would be ending in September of 2024. So this gives a timeline for us as we're making our way over the next several years to make sure that we're not overspending, particularly these new positions and grants, so that we can accommodate them and not create a funding cliff at the end of 2024. We're hoping that there's some leeway in that 2024 year gets pushed out a year or two, but at this point, that's the number we have to work with, the date. And again, just highlighting some of the bullet points that Ms. Spinney had provided. There was pre-COVID, if we can remember back that far, her department had in the school department had a real commitment to going 1-to-1 in grades 5 through 12. We were 9 through 12, then we went 7 and 8, then we backed that down to 5th and 6th. So there was an increase of 1,200 plus Chromebooks. Some of that was supported through our friends at Gear Up in Mount Wachusett. We expanded our broadband connectivity from 800 megabytes to 3 gigabytes, and then implemented, if you remember, we implemented the esports program at Fitchburg High School, which were 10 high-end workstations for kids participating in the esports, which is an MIAA sanctions activity. And then after that, we were dealing with providing technology for our students, for our staff, getting them, over 2,000 Chromebooks, 200 hotspots, another 400 Chromebooks for our teachers. These are all things that were largely funded through the technology grant, but I can't say enough for the work that Ms. Spinney and the IT department did to make sure that we were able to provide to our staff and our students and their families the ability to access the online platform. We also implemented 110 licenses for Google Voice, which expanded our ability to contact and reach out to families, and then implemented the G Suite, which was just a higher-end use of Google Classroom so that we could really push out the best product that we could when we were under the remote learning model. And that's, there are numerous other pieces of equipment that went out the door over the course of the last year, all in support of instruction and improving instruction and teaching and learning.
I guess, Craig, just going back to technology, I think before the pandemic, we were in pretty decent shape as a district with technology, and I think I'd say the general myth that a lot of urbans didn't have either Chromebooks or hotspots. I think that was more of a myth here in Fitchburg. Did it help us to help our students that we were able to provide 200 hotspots? Yes. So the access issue wasn't as large. Clearly, the pace at which we all had to pivot, I think, caught everybody by surprise a year ago in March. But we had technology, hardware mostly ready to deploy, and whatever we didn't, we were able to purchase. So that was really, I think, a bright spot of the pandemic, if I can say that.
Just looking at our facilities and our capital plan as we move forward, this is a slide that we've seen before. It provides some context to our older buildings that we've been addressing. Obviously, the roof at the West Building and at South Street, in the new boilers in the South Building. We are underway at Fitchburg High School doing some immediately needed repairs. But this is just a kind of a snapshot of where we were. This was from the Lamoureux-Pagano study from 2016, along with the MSBA work that they did after that. I think the highlight to this is we're dealing with almost 1 million square feet in our city schools. Although McKay is included in there, in that total, but Mr. Richardson and his team with Mark Kasparian and his leadership are really looking at providing, I think that real team approach, which is so critical for us moving forward. And again, I touched on this a little bit earlier. For our capital projects, really looking at our AHERA management plan and making sure that we have a very detailed plan for this coming year and for the next 2 years, if necessary, to do the amount of abatement that we would like to. Much of this, as we get into these bigger projects, we're talking $6 million or $10 million for unit ventilators, building controls. Much of this will be addressing the abatement as they go as well. So it's kind of all part of the same thing. But these are critical pieces that can be funded out of the ESSER grant. We've already talked to City Procurement here. Mary Delaney's been great providing us with the insight in the kind of the roadmap of getting a OPM on board, because this is going to be a multi-phase, multi-year, multi-million-dollar endeavor. We are, and it's on the list for tonight, looking to address the Longzhou, particularly windows and boilers immediately through the accelerated repair grant through MSBA, but also looking at roofs and other infrastructure around the district. The ADA ramps, which I mentioned, irrigation, we're still looking at upgrading so that we can actually get a proper amount of irrigation on the upper and lower fields at Fitchburg High School so the kids have the best possible surface to play on. And then looking at our security and infrastructure needs, and much of this will be tied into E-rate, tied into our wireless infrastructure, and we're looking at cloud-based solutions for security cameras, for door access, and for visitor management as well. Quick update on our MSBA projects. We know that the schematic design was submitted for the new Crocker Elementary School on the 5th of May. We do have a meeting this week with MSBA, and we are waiting for the MSBA final vote on June 23rd. And then we can hopefully move forward at that point to seek funding for the Crocker Elementary School project. Quick highlight for the south building, the boilers are complete and certified. The west building is nearly completed. We have run into a small the issue with some masonry work that will need to be. We are putting in a change order for about $25,000 to $30,000 of masonry work where the downspouts are actually connected, and the engineers and the roofing company has actually highlighted one area that they're asking for us to put in one additional downspout, which will also help with preserving the masonry around that particular area. And then on the on our action items tonight, we will be submitting statement of interest for the accelerated repair program through MSBA for the Longjo windows and boilers. The windows are 37 years old, much of which you can't see through. You can't see the outside. Many of them don't work. And then the boilers and the heating plant. So just kind of in summary, and I've mentioned this several times, is just balancing what we have in ESSER grants, what we have in grant funding, balancing that with our school budget and making sure that we're not overspending to create this funding cliff. We don't know what our enrollment increases are or would be in 2023, and that's impact on the SOA. You know, this is a negotiation year, so we want to make sure that we are planning for that. You know, again, these new positions that we've highlighted tonight, I think, you know, critically important, and these are the 4 pillars that I highlight once again. You know, curriculum that is accessible and reflective of our students, tiered system of academic, social, emotional support, staff development, diversity, recruitment planning, and a sense, providing a sense of welcome and belonging for all students, parents, staff, all members of our community. And really, it's bringing that balance between equity, access, opportunity, growth, and achievement as we move forward for this next school year.
So that was a lot of information. We did keep it under 30 slides, just for the record, 27. But
What happened to 20?
we couldn't get it to 20.
20 is the cap. I tried my best, Mr. Stevens.
He did try. I said 20, Craig.
Big font.
But, so really, this is our first, tonight is the first reading for the school committee. The second and final reading will be Monday, June 7th. You know, we're still looking at, you know, understanding and seeing, you know, what the ESSER can fund in a variety of areas. What it can and what it cannot fund are pretty clear. You know, we are dealing with the enrollment decrease, or, you know, similar enrollment decrease that other school districts are. We're hopeful that when we reopen in August of this year, you know, this enrollment blip caused by COVID disappears, and we can get back because the October 1 number drives the following year. We're fortunate that the SOA money, again, we're receiving over $3 million of SOA funding because of our student needs and our population. Not every district is receiving SOA funding. Fitchburg and many other gateway communities are benefiting from that legislation. And I think the ESSER funding will allow us to make some key infrastructure repairs, replacements, upgrades at our school facilities to you know, make it just a healthier and safer environment for teaching and learning. So, having said that, we're open for questions from the committee. Ms. Reynolds.
We're uncertain, I think, or are we, I'll ask a question, are we uncertain just what form of communications? Will it be full-time students? Will there still be some at home, hybrid? Whatever that answer is, does it call for a change in our technology and the manner of teaching? Will some of what we learned be integrated?
Yeah, so the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley, has been very clear. He keeps, that in the fall it will be full in-person learning only. There will be no remote learning option unless a district wanted to apply to have a virtual academy, which would be the equivalent of setting up a virtual school.
Within the school? Within the high school, say? Or?
No, it could be a high school, it could be K through 8, it could be K through 12. But that would involve staffing up a virtual school to support the virtual learners. We are not proposing that at this time because when we look at our budget, that would be creating an additional infrastructure, a whole group of staff into that budget. So it's not something that we're proposing. We've had some initial conversation, some investigation. Clearly the last year showed us what's possible with technology, but also I think it's demonstrated the importance of the in-person teaching and learning.
Well, what I was kind of driving at is all of this that we so hurriedly and well coping with the changes that we've experienced. But will it just all be dismantled now? I mean, will everybody still need the Chromebooks? Will everybody still need all of the equipment that they've got? Will the teachers still be using the same?
Yeah,
Is there an integration, a new integration? Has education changed a bit?
I think, to answer your question is we're going to try to keep the best aspects of the technology, and the Chromebooks are a device to deliver content and for students to use as a tool. But having that as a tool and as a resource versus a primary, I think, maybe gateway or tool that it was, the last year, so to speak.
What about snow days? Do we need them anymore, or can they still?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. I can't give you an official answer on snow days at this time, but we clearly have the technology and infrastructure where one could argue that snow days are not necessary anymore. So, I guess Jean or Sally?
Go ahead. So, Craig, I have a few questions that I'll just email you, I think, to get a response, because they're just quick little ones. But a bigger question that I have is the unvaccinated students that will be returning to school. So basically all elementary kids. And I was listening on my way to work this morning to Randy Weingarten talk about what people are talking about in terms of that. And if we maintain the 3-foot distance with the elementary, what position are we in for our schools to bring everybody back who maybe has stayed remote at this point? And one of the things that she talked about were districts investigating other off-site buildings that may be able to accommodate additional people. So I'm just curious if there's anything in the talks right now that you're thinking we would need more space.
We haven't looked at this, we've talked a lot about space and how we would do that this year if necessary. I think we're still waiting on what guidance, what next year will actually look like and what those recommendations are from the Department of Ed. We can make some assumptions that around pool testing will probably remain with us, and I know that the grant is still available for Concentric to provide those services. And then what updated, or if so, guidance around 3-foot distance and what that means to class sizes. I think that we don't have that information yet, and I think it would be different almost from class to class and building to building. So it does become kind of a tricky formula, but something that we'll certainly keep an eye on as next year approaches.
I would really recommend that the district reach out to have public meetings with elementary school parents, because, I mean, I don't have an elementary school child, but if I'd really want to know prior to sending my child back that first day what it's all going to look like. And I'm sure the principals are good about communicating all of that, but I think that's still going to be the one group of our population that we're going to obviously be very concerned about, you know? And I know that the disease the virus doesn't affect young kids like it, you know, so there's that positive piece. But I can imagine there are parents out there who are concerned about what is that going to look like, and is there going to be enough room when everybody goes back?
Yeah. So I think maybe I'll try to address some of the issues. We are working actively right now with the Board of Health, trying to help get our students vaccinated. We had a vaccination clinic last week at Fitchburg High School. We're looking to do for 16 to 18-year-olds or 16 and above, including family members. And this week, either Thursday or Friday, we're looking to finalize the days. We're going to have a mobile vaccination clinic go to all our middle schools and Fitchburg High School. We have, I think, the Board of Health has secured about 200 Pfizer vaccinations available for that. And with the school calendar being what it is, the last day of school, that bus would be able to come back and perform the second vaccination for those students. In addition, on Friday, the Board of Health will be having a clinic, vaccination clinic. I think the location might be the YMCA, but just watch on our social media for the final location to provide the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccinations to adults in the community who may be interested. Those two vaccinations are not approved for 18 and under, or under 18 right now. The FDA has provided approval for under 18 on Pfizer. So we are making that available. Now with the availability of vaccines, people can walk into CVS's, local pharmacies and Walmart and get a vaccination pretty quickly.
But under 12, nobody is approved at this point.
Nobody's approved yet, although Pfizer is applying, and I think their goal or their ask of the FDA is to have approval by the beginning of school, by September. So that's their plan, and we'll see what happens. So I think, we're there have been articles. I saw an article on the news this weekend about another Boston community, and I think a lot of superintendents are waiting for, again, more guidance from DESE based on the latest DPH CDC guidance. So Massachusetts has not yet prescribed the guidance for school children yet, and I think as we look towards next year. So that'll be one of the things that we will communicate out to our families as soon as we're aware.
Well, because that's the big chunk of kids that didn't come this year, right? Like, so 100 and something, I think you said, 170 pre-K.
That's right? Across the country. The kindergarten took a huge hit.
I mean, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. I mean, you don't have to send your child, you're not going to send your child.
Right.
But that to me is the group that we're really going to have a very proactive plan to make sure they're comfortable with the environment that their kid goes back to.
So Gene, we did do the work to figure out what 3 feet would look like at the beginning of this because we didn't know if it was going to be 3 feet or 6 feet. So we have that plan, so we could have that up and running relatively quickly. And most of the buildings can fit, the elementary school buildings can't fit with the 3 feet creatively, but most of them fit. There's a couple that we're waiting for some repairs that I believe are in the works, but we could make that happen. And the procedures, the principals have the procedures set up, so I think it would just be setting up a communication plan so parents could know exactly what that would look like. And it would be similar to how things run now, just a little tighter.
Okay.
And I think if I could maybe go back to, the first question from Ms. Reynolds, too. I think what has changed is from more, I'm going to say more concerned about the secondary grade level students, but, their agency to participate during the pandemic. And, I don't say once the genie has been let out of the bottle, how do we put it back in? And essentially, Commissioner Riley is saying, we're going back to full in person, and we're trying to look at, okay, what worked in terms of remote, but what can we retain as we move forward and keep our students at all grade levels and families engaged. So I think that's a challenge, I think across the country, and that we're all going to be facing. So,
Superintendent, we are very close to that 200 vaccine threshold from that survey already.
Okay, yeah. So we surveyed the middle school parents, and yes, we have demand.
We do.
So, again, we're trying to help our community members with access. So some of them may not want to or feel comfortable going to a pharmacy, and also having the vaccination at school is more convenient. So that's what we're trying to help out. Well, Mr. Walsh.
Quick question. I appreciate what the district has done and what the health department has done to have the vaccinations last week at the high school and the mobile van coming around. Is it possible to do, school vaccinations even in the summer? Have something set up at a school where parents could bring their children if they can't get to them now? Is that a possibility?
It's possible, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
we could do that if
it's possible.
We could.
I think, one of the things, just from a student health perspective, that we're investigating as well is the dental services provided by the Community Health Center. We've had conversations with them about, resuming that even during the summertime on a more limited basis. But yeah.
Okay.
Sally.
Yeah, two things. I was really pleased to see that the ESSER funds cover some of the building needs that we have and the ventilation. And I also wanted to say, Craig, if you could email the entire report. There was a lot I wanted to take more detailed notes on. But I had a question and a comment, and just to remind viewers that curriculum coordinators, such a great thing to see and to hear. I feel like in the midst of a very difficult year to be having curriculum coordinators for teachers to work with is, again, going to be standardizing, what's being taught, and where we do have, enough kids going from school to school, there's going to be that consistency that they'll land where they had been before in terms of what they're learning and how it's being taught, especially with our new curriculum program. But I realize that this covers everything from math and science and social studies and so forth. So that's really exciting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you know what the rate of the disease is now? We've been watching it all the time, and do you know what the current rate in Fitchburg is?
It's below 3%. I think I can tell you what it is. I have a spreadsheet.
Positivity was 3 last week, wasn't it?
Was it? I have a weekly update.
It's fluctuated. It's gone between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Positivity rate. It's good. Mm-hmm. It's good. And even more significant is the diminishing and reducing death rates.
2.86% was as of last week, and that trend has, decreased from, let's see, over 10%. It was at about 10% at the beginning of the calendar year. So yeah, we're down in that 2%, 3% range. It's kind of flat.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, and I guess, Jean, we'll get back to you with any specific questions you want to send our way. And if,
I'll email them,
Yeah.
Craig. But I would just like to tell you, that was such a great presentation. It was so clear, and I like the constant reminders about ESSA. So thanks for that.
Okay. So, Craig, you want to just continue with the donations here? And
Yep, so we have 2 donations to be accepted. We have a donation of 38 Abbott Binex Now COVID tests from Rebecca Jackman from VNA Care, the estimated value of $450. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And then we have a donation to the enrollment from New View Communities, 100 mask and hand sanitizer kits for students. 5 masks per kit, estimated value of $1,000, and those will be utilized for families to alleviate financial hardship of purchasing masks and sanitizers. We have the 1 grant to submit, which was already voted on this evening, and we have 1 more request, an action item for the MSBA Statement of Interest for the Longview Middle School windows and boilers at the Accelerated Repair Program through MSBA. We are seeking your permission to submit the statement of interest at the end of the month, and we will be at City Council tomorrow evening to ask the same. And again, this is just permission for us to submit the statement of interest. This is not, does not mean that it will be accepted.
I'm happy to see us using that accelerated repair program. That's one of the better aspects of MSBA. We appreciate that. Okay.
And there is a very specific vote language on the last page of the packet.
Yeah.
So those are the last 3 items.
Maybe we could bundle and leave that last one alone and do that last one separately.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to bundle 2167 through 2174.
Second.
Well, 75, right? Oh, we already did 75.
We did that, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Motion made and seconded to bundle 21-67 up through and including 21-74. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion that we approve 2167 through 2174.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Taking up 21-76. Craig, you want to just give us...
Yeah, part of this was cut off on my
Boilers and
sheet, so
windows,
I will say.
Yeah.
So this is, having convened an open meeting on May 17th prior to the statement of interest submission closing date of June 1st. So this is voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest dated May 30th, 2021 for the Longview Middle School, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. It is a priority 5 replacement or modernization of school facilities such as roofs, windows, boilers, heatings, ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in the school facility. The request is replacement of 2 27-year-old boilers that have reached end of life and continue to need extensive work to maintain working order, and the replacement of 34-year-old aluminum double-pane plastic glazed windows that are not energy efficient, in many cases inoperable, impacting indoor air quality and pose a physical danger to staff and students due to mechanical malfunctions. And hereby further specify, acknowledge that the submitting the statement of interest The Massachusetts School Building Authority is in no way guarantees the acceptance of the approval or an application, the awarding of the grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the City of Fitchburg to filing an application for funding with the MSBA.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept action item 21-76.
Motion made
Second?
and seconded to accept 21-76. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, it is unanimous. Thank you. Executive session is not necessary at this time. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, it is unanimous. We are adjourned.